Okay, well, here we are officially in VISL Instruction training for faculty. I very much appreciate you guys all being here on a weeknight to join me and learn about VISL Instruction, which stands for Virtual In-Seat Learning. If you are on the schedule already to teach a Virtual In-Seat Learning class, or you think you might like to, then this is the place where hopefully I can show you everything you'll need to know and answer any questions that you might have right now so that you feel good getting started. I am going to do one thing right off the bat. You can see in our agenda that I mentioned pedagogy as one of our bullet points. Now, I'm going to go ahead and violate that pedagogy right up front, because what I really want you guys to do, what I really want you to focus on, is interaction. Use this tool to bring you and your students together. There are a lot of things that I'll show you how to do in here that you can incorporate into your class, lots of hands-on activities, lots of ways to really keep students engaged. You might think that the technology would separate you, but there's a lot of stuff hiding in here that can help bring you together. But because we only have a few hours together, and there's a lot that I want to show you, I'm going to talk a lot. Unfortunately, I don't want you guys to do that, so this becomes more of a do as I say, not as I do training. So let's move ahead on that note, because I want to make sure that we have time for everything. We're going to talk about setting up your class sessions, because you will need to do that. We're going to go over the basic Blackboard Collaborate tools. There are many nuanced tools that you can explore on your own, but we're going to cover the ones that instructors find most useful in the classroom. Then we'll talk about, again, pedagogy, what's a good way to frame and run your VISL course, and design, since that is an element of it. And then, before we go, I want to make sure we talk about you and you feel ready to go. And pardon me, the seasons are changing, and I hope that I don't lose my voice on you. Okay, on that note, we've been talking about the Audio Wizard. Hopefully you've all done that. I know I saw some of you doing it. A quick note about the Audio Wizard. Audio connections can be a little persnickety, that's the technical term, in Blackboard Collaborate, because Blackboard Collaborate is dependent on a strong connection. And you could find that you have a little bit of a blip in your bandwidth. If you are teaching an evening course, sometimes just as we're all getting started at 6 o'clock, you may find that it's difficult to get everyone fully connected. That's okay. It's because everyone is trying to access the same bandwidth at the same time. But if you're patient and you let students know that it might take a little time to get set up, then you should be okay. And it can take a few minutes, depending on how many people are trying to access the system at the same time. The university has a good server system, so if your students are working from a campus, and if you are working from a campus, you should be okay. However, we have also decided that you may conduct these classes from the location of your choice, and your students may also attend from the location of their choice if they have the bandwidth and the computer system to support that. That could mean it slows you down a little bit when you're getting set up. That's okay. It just means you have to let your students know that that could happen, but once you get set up, everything should be fine. And I mentioned the Audio Wizard there because if you do find that you have trouble connecting, if you do find that there is some kind of a blip in the audio, you're welcome to run your wizard more than once. Just because you have run it doesn't mean that you can never run it again. You may also find, on that note, that you simply cannot either get everything to connect or you can't maintain a connection. If that is the case, don't be afraid to close out of your session and then open it back up again. And you may tell your students to do the same thing. It could be that just the minute it takes you to close out and come back is enough time for the bandwidth to refresh itself, and then you have a chance to make a good, strong connection. One word of warning: if you do close the session, your students can close out and come back at will. They have a different level of access than you do. You, the instructor, can also close the session and return as many times as you like. But if you are the only person in that session and you have loaded content, meaning you've uploaded a PowerPoint to Blackboard Collaborate, as I have here, and you leave the session, when you come back it won't be there. Don't panic over that. You can load it again. It usually only takes a minute to load. I've never seen it take more than a few minutes to fully upload all of your slides. So just know that Blackboard Collaborate is an empty vessel. It is designed to be just a container that you fill up over and over again, so it won't actually store your PowerPoints if you close the room. But that's an awful lot of stuff to have to remember right off the bat. So here in this "What else can you do beyond this training session" section, I have put you can watch short videos in Develop You. I have detailed a lot of these basic functions in a typical class in some short videos. I put together a PDF with some FAQs. That's a lot of acronyms, but there's a document there with frequently asked questions that you can access. And I'm going to give you, right there in the chat box is the direct link to the Develop You page where all of those films live. And as long as you have a Davenport login, then you can get to those films. You can also search for them if you just went to the Develop You homepage, and in the upper right-hand corner there's a search box. Type VISL Instruction, the course will pop right up. You can also take the IT training team's Blackboard Collaborate session. I do not know if they are running that right now, but check the calendar. They do run it from time to time, and if you don't see it on the calendar, please do reach out and contact the CSC. You can do that. I'm typing and talking. I'm not very good at that. By emailing csc@davenport.edu. You can call them from a campus phone at extension 1212, or you can call them from anywhere else at their 800 number, which is also there in the chat box. And just ask them if they're going to run another session, or if you ever have specific questions about Blackboard Collaborate. They know this tool quite well, and they can help you too. So, moving along, I did say you have to set up your own sessions in Blackboard Collaborate. And I noticed a note here in the chat box from Michael about inviting people from outside the course into the session. We will cover that. In order to do that, though, first you have to set up a session. Every course at Davenport comes with a Blackboard shell. It doesn't matter if you teach in-seat, online, blended, or VISL. You will get a Blackboard shell that is unique to that course. And every Blackboard shell comes with a link to Blackboard Collaborate. So you can use this tool in any course that you teach. So, just in case there's more in here as we go through it that you can remember right now, I am recording this, And I will share the PowerPoint with you at the end of the session, but there are also videos on that Develop You page that cover how you create a session and how you upload a PowerPoint. But before we even talk about that, let's do it together. Let me show you how you actually set up a Blackboard Collaborate session. And this is taking a couple of seconds because I'm switching between tools inside of Blackboard Collaborate. This is a time when I'm not the biggest fan of talking just to talk to fill up silence. I had to really learn to get over that, teaching in this format, because you may have students who think that silence means malfunction. It can take a few seconds to transition between specific tools inside of Blackboard Collaborate. And if you just stop talking and do it, and don't let your students know that you are doing it, what they get from you is dead air. And they may think that their audio has gone bad or that your audio has gone bad. Anything that you can do to give them a little note of reassurance that things are functioning the way they should be, give me a second to make this happen, and we'll get right back on track. I always advise that you do that. So, on that note, there we go. It took just a second to make that happen. But what I hope you can see now is my sandbox. You should see a Blackboard page that says Christopher Luga Sandbox. And you probably also see a black rectangle over the top of that on the left-hand side. I did that on purpose just for a second because I want to make sure that you can see that. Does everybody see that Blackboard page? Can you just give me a quick type in the chat box there? Linda sees it, thank you. Okay, good. So if it's popping up for a couple of you, you probably all have it. Oh, Michael has figured out the checkbox. Good. Okay. Then I am going to minimize this black rectangle, which is actually my view of the chat box, so that you can see the full screen with this Blackboard page on it. So my sandbox is set up in the online template, which means that there are a couple of things that may look a little different if you don't teach online, but the functionality within Blackboard is all the same. So I bring you here because I want to show you a few ways to get to the page where you create sessions. You may have this area in your left side menu called Student Toolbox. I have a direct link on mine to Blackboard Collaborate. If you don't, that's okay. You may also see a link here to Blackboard Tools, which you can still click on even though it's under the Student section, and it will take you to this Tools page where you can see this big Blackboard Collaborate link. Or, because you will be instructors, you will have access to this Course Management Control panel where you can go to Course Tools and then click on Blackboard Collaborate from there. Either way, you get to this page where every class comes with a ready room, that is this room right here, that matches, as you can see from what I've highlighted, it matches the name of the course that is listed in this left-hand menu. This is not actually the master template, it's a copy, which is actually my sandbox. For some reason, the name didn't get changed there. But if you want to use this room, all you have to do is click this big blue Join Room button, and that will open up your session. You can also edit that room. You can also create a link to it. You can also invite guests. But you can also create a session. You can create multiple sessions using this Schedule a Session link, And that's what we're going to do now. So when I push the Create Session button, then you see a lot of information pop up. The default name is the default name of the course, but you can change that. And if you like to create multiple rooms, which you don't have to, but if you like to, then I strongly recommend that you do rename them so that you and your students can keep them straight. They all have a timer, and you can start them immediately. Blackboard Collaborate reckons time in 15-minute increments, so you can see, although it's 5:18 on my clock, this room is scheduled to open at 5:30, because that's the next 15-minute increment. And the default here is to keep it open for an hour, but you can actually keep it open for a year if you would like to. Let's, for the sake of argument, keep it open for the rest of the semester. So Christmas Day will be all done with the fall semester, and you can change the start and end time by moving these slider bars. Then take a look at this early session entry. If you like to get into your sessions early, which I do, then you can set that for as long as an hour ahead of time. 15 minutes is the default. But I like to, when I have the time to do it, give myself a little breathing room to get everything set up. Session type is always going to say course, because this is attached to your Blackboard shell. Teleconference options is always defaulted here to use the built-in function. We do have a telephone option within Blackboard Collaborate that is also hiding in the Tools menu. The Tools menu, thankfully, is alphabetical. So when you open it, you will see a link that says telephony. And hiding in there is a telephone number that, should your students or you simply be unable to connect through your speakers, through your headset, you can always use that telephone number to patch into the course, and you'll see it in the chat box. It'll say teleconference and a little icon of a telephone. You will not know who is on the telephone. You'll have to ask, but it's there if we need it. I'm skipping one deliberately because we'll spend a lot of time there in just a second. Grade Center integration. This is a pretty neat idea. Your default setting is off, but let's say you would like to make participation in this session a gradable event. If you say yes, add a grade column, you can make it worth however many points you like. And this will build a column in your Blackboard gradebook, which you can then go back to and grade students for having participated in this session. But since we are not actually in a graded course right now, I'm going to leave it at no. Roles and access is a good thing to know about. You are the instructor of record. This is my sandbox. I am the instructor of record, so I will show up just as you will show up as the moderator in your course Blackboard Shell Collaborate sessions. Students will be added to those sessions by default as participants, which means they won't have the same level of access that you do. You can change that here by adding moderators, and I don't have any other users in this course, so there's no one for me to add here. But in your Blackboard course, any student who is registered will show up in a list of users, and you can select and submit those users to be given moderator privileges from the get-go. You can also just check the box that say all users join as moderators, or you can leave them as participants here and then give them moderator privileges once you're in the session. So I'm going to shrink these two panels and open up the room attributes. this is where a lot of important stuff is hiding. I had told you that I was recording this session, and this is where you make the decisions about how you record or if you record. The default setting for recording is manual. You can change that to automatic, which means that as soon as you open the session up, the recording begins. Now, if you've set your early session entry to, say, the hour before the course is set to begin, then you'll have an hour of dead air in that recording. That's why I like to leave it on automatic, because then I can do all of my prep work and start the recording when we're ready to go. You can also turn recordings off with the disabled function, but when you're teaching in a credit-bearing course, I like the recording function because if you have students who have to miss a class or have to be late, then they can always access it later. They'll have access to the recordings because they're already registered and in your Blackboard shell. If you want to, say, put some study guides together, or you want your students to go back to these recordings as a study tool, you've already got them here. Pay attention to this 6 max simultaneous talkers and cameras. You can see here that is all we get. This is a Blackboard restriction. We can't change this. Chances are you're going to have more than 6 students in your class. So what we strongly recommend that you do is you as the instructor turn your talk button on and leave it on. Turn your video on and either leave it on or explain to the students that you will turn it off once you get into the heart of the course. But have your students get into the habit of starting with their talk and video off and then using a raise hand protocol, a call-on protocol, however you want to define that for your own course. When it is the student's turn to speak, that's when they'll turn on their talk and their video if they have video access so that they can participate without locking out other students from the possibility of doing that. If you have all 6 microphones and cameras on, then other students whose cameras and microphones aren't on cannot participate. So it's just, it's a round robin. You just get into the habit of calling on or raising hands. And there is a raise hand function in here. I'll show you that in a minute. And then you'll be fine with this 6-person restriction. Most of these buttons are defaulted to off, and we don't use them a whole lot. You can give students permissions here by clicking on, but you can also do that by giving them moderator privileges either as you're setting up the course or when you're in the session. Raise hand on entry, you can turn that on. Just as I had said, there is a raise hand function that your students can access when they want to ask a question. If you use the raise hand on entry option here, then as they come into the course, it'll sound almost like a doorbell's ringing that they're entering the room, and you'll hear a ding as each one comes in. But you'll also see them in the chat box. You'll also see them appear in the participants panel. So if you like the sound, then by all means use this. If not, don't worry about it. This, Michael, to answer your question, how do we get people who are not registered in Blackboard to get into our courses? These are the 2 buttons that you want to make sure are defaulted to on. In-session invitations is how I got you here tonight, and guests is kind of the backup to that function. So it's always good practice to keep both of these buttons defaulted to on, and then once the session is open, you can create a link that then can be sent to folks to join you without having to register in Blackboard.
Oh, okay, Chris? Okay,
yes.
So, yeah, when I answered you before, I wasn't ignoring you. It was just I didn't have my talk on it.
That's okay.
Okay, so that's good. That's, I guess, half the question. I didn't answer the question properly. Okay, basically, I have two class sections running at the same time, which is not a problem with VISL, right?
Okay.
So
it shouldn't be.
Well, yeah. I mean, my question really is, I've got, two sessions. So how do I invite the students from both sessions to the same Collaborate? Or do I just send them the link?
Well, let me ask you this. Are those students technically in the same course, or are you combining two courses together? Do you have a cross-listed course?
Well, it's one course is listed as Livonia with a particular CRN, and the other one is listed as Lansing with a different CRN.
Okay. I know exactly what that is. That is the way that the information has fed over to you from Banner, which is our huge records keeping system. Before that course actually begins, both of those classes will be pushed into one Blackboard shell. So they'll all be together in the same place. That is to avoid you having to do exactly what you're worried about. You don't have to do it. We'll do it behind the scenes in IT so that I cannot remember how they decide which Blackboard shell they all go into, but they'll all go in there so that you can access all of the students at one time. Now, the one thing I will say about that, the one caution is when you come down to final grades, you will probably still see them listed as two separate courses in Banner. You'll post all your grades in the Blackboard shell, and then in order to complete the process, you'll have to go back out to Banner, to that records keeping system, and type the grades in there as well. And that is where I think you will see them as two separate courses with those two 5-digit numbers.
Okay, yeah, I'll figure out. My main concern was the Collaborate.
No, we know that there's an awful lot for you to have to understand here, so we tried to take some of the more complicated stuff out of the way for you.
Just one less thing to get stressed out over.
No, we don't want more stress. Yeah. Okay, so I've shown you all of the buttons that you can push in here except
one last thing. So that should really be obvious to me when that's combined. Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And if it does not look like they are combined, then please do reach out to your associate department chair and ask for help. I have never heard of it not working, but it's technology, and technology is technology, and every once in a while something happens. But if it doesn't look like they've come together, please let your department know, and then they can, or you can work with IT to make sure that it
gets. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so here's one button that we haven't pushed. That is the Save button. We've gone through pretty much all of the details that we can in here. Oh, and look, I talked so long that we've gone past 5:30. So I'm moving this. Come on. It doesn't want to move. No. There we go. Okay. I'm moving this to 5:45, but I've still got early session entry. So there we go. Now we have the green success bar from Blackboard, and what you can see now is this link called Sample Room. This is an active room now. It's ready for you. If we click on it, another Blackboard Collaborate session will open. I don't know what that would do to this Blackboard Collaborate session. I've actually never tried that, so I'm not going to push that button right now. But this blue text means that your class is ready to go. You can hover over and you can see the finger for the active link. You'll also see this little drop-down menu, which means that you can edit the session from here. You can cancel it if you decided you didn't want it. You can invite guests from here. You can add a link, which actually means that you can post the link to this section of your Blackboard course in another part of your Blackboard course. So if you wanted to, say, put this into an announcement or put it into weekly materials so that your students had a shortcut, you can do that. After you've run this session, if you've recorded it, then it will appear in a recordings list right here. You just toggle back and forth between scheduled and recorded. And if you don't see it, then just adjust these calendar parameters and it should pop up. So that's actually how you create a session. And I've got to get out of, here we go. I've got to get out of the application sharing, there we are, and back into the PowerPoint, and there we are. And Michael, I see you have one more question there in the chat box. When you enter the room, the default is, yes, that your talk is off, and that's something, your talk button is right there, right there. And if you start talking and your students say, we can't hear you, just make sure you've actually pushed that button. If your students start talking and you can't hear them, then it may simply be that no one's pushed that button. But that's, we used to have a product called Wimba where you could push that talk button when you wish to begin speaking, but then it would turn itself off automatically when you stopped. If you had used that old system, then this is a hard habit to break because this will not automatically turn itself off. You have to turn the talk button off when you have finished speaking. Your students have to turn the talk button off when they're finished speaking. So that is the process for setting up a class session in Blackboard Collaborate. It seems like there's a lot going on, but it really is just knowing how to navigate to that page where the options live and then deciding which ones you like. If you don't want to go to the trouble of setting up those sessions in advance, remember that ready room is always there. You just have to push the big join button and it will start for you. And then once you're in it, once it opens up, you can set things up just as you would with that create session room. So now that you've seen that, here we are at the heart of VISL tools. And when I say VISL tools, I mean the tools that are right now housed in Blackboard Collaborate, since that's the system that we use right now. Blackboard's a tool. Blackboard Collaborate is a tool. And tools come and go. We've been with Blackboard for a very long time, so chances are we are going to continue to use it here at Davenport. But what I want you to know more than anything else is that VISL is a way to teach. So if we got a new tool tomorrow, let's say we broke up with Blackboard and we decided that we were going to go with Canvas or Angel or Sakai or Moodle, who are competitors to Blackboard, they'll have something similar that we can use to set up class sessions and to run VISL courses just the way we are now. And right now, I do want you to know what these specific tools are within Blackboard and Blackboard Collaborate. But think about the course that you're designing beyond the tools. That's going to be a very important thing that we'll talk about even as we're going through and pushing all the buttons and making sure everything works. So you can see right here something very important that says Tools Part 1, which means, guess what? There's a Part 2. So there are 6 things listed here. We've already been talking a little bit about some of them. So we'll move a little bit more quickly through this section. But I wanted to list them all out here for you to show you kind of how they group together. This section I call usage tools. Primarily that means that they're coming from you and going in one direction to your students. They can, if you give them the privilege to do it, use these tools as well, but it's primarily a way for you to push information out to them. And the first one we've already talked about, the webcams and the microphones. So the ability to speak, the ability to at least type in the chat box is much more important than having video available, because if I turn my video off, you can still hear me talking. And that's very important for the instructor to have the ability to communicate with the students. But if you do use video and your students use video, please know that it will follow the active speaker. So anytime that someone is using their microphone, the camera will automatically redirect to them. And by redirect, I mean within the system, that person's video will be magnified to the size of the video that you see of me right now, and then the rest of the folks who have video capability and have their videos on will be in little thumbnails below my picture, in between my picture and the talk and video buttons beneath it. But it can be a little bit distracting if everyone leaves their video on, simply because they're tuned to sound. So if you're talking, that's great. But let's say I'm not talking. What if I'm messing with my headphone adjuster? I'm sure you could hear that rustling sound coming through. That's enough actually to trip the video from one person to another. So if someone is actually trying to speak and another person is messing with their headset, or let's say a phone rings, or a dog barks, or a child talks if they're at home, then that video may jump around and it gets a little distracting. That's why we say turn off your microphone, turn off your video, students, when you're not speaking. And here at the bottom it says, I just put in this little note about students can be camera shy. You're not required to make them use that video. I think it's nice. I think it's a nice way to connect, since we are forced to communicate through the technology. And it's a little bit of a humanizing touch. But if they don't have a video, then that's okay too. Now, Michael, here is the long-winded rest of the answer to your question about in-session invites. So we see how we can set up the capability for that when we're putting that course session together. And here are some reasons why you might want in-session invite capability. Guest speakers is the option, Michael, that you've already, I think, identified for somebody who's not attached to your Blackboard course. You never know if somebody is having a Blackboard issue, but they want to be able to participate in the course. Let's say there's been some kind of holdup in their registration, but they've contacted you and they don't want to lose time in the course. Having that in-session invite capability would allow them to be in there from the very beginning until everything works for them. And I see Bob has posted a question there, and let me take a look at that. Oh, okay, Bob, you're asking a question about having a student stand in front of class. Do you need them to stand in front of class to do presentations? Bob, are you answering? I can see your microphone icon has turned on, but I can't hear you talking. Are you actually talking? Oh, typing. Okay. So this is another time when it's good to say, okay, folks, I'm going to pause for a minute while Bob is typing so that I can answer his question. Class is still going. Nothing's wrong with the technology. Just give us a second. Yeah, okay, part of the speech class is standing in front of the class. Well, there's a couple of things that you might be able to do. One, if you need them to stand in front of the class, what you can do is move the camera farther away. You can see that I'm getting farther away. And then if I stand up, then you can see me. But I'm still pretty small. So another thing that you can do, you've got down the left side of your Blackboard Collaborate session an audio and video square, you've got a participant square, and you've got a chat box square. If you left click and hold on the top of any of those squares, so let's say I hold down, left click and hold right where it says video in audio and video, then I can drag that square anywhere else onto my screen that I want to, and if I position my cursor in one corner of that box, it'll give me the little arrow, the double-ended arrow, which is the universal IT sign for expand, which then again you would left-click and hold, and you can drag that square, you can drag the corner to make the square big enough so that if the student is doing that front of class presentation, then you can actually see them a little bit better. Just know that the cameras that are associated with, the cameras that get built into these computers are not, it's not like shooting a Hollywood movie. They're not the greatest. They work for this tool because for the most part we really just need to have the capability of seeing each other. They wouldn't pick a student up. They certainly won't pick up if you have that student, say, writing on the classroom whiteboard. The whiteboards are shiny, and you can see behind me that even my overhead light is creating a glare on my screen. That's why we have the actual whiteboard screen inside Collaborate. But there are ways that you can kind of move these parts and pieces around to make them work better. And if once you have popped that video square out of the left-hand panel there, you can always put it back. You just have to left-click, hold, and drag it back over to the panel, and then let it go, and it will position itself back in that left-hand column. But there's one other thing. Actually, yes, Bob, that's an easy fix. If it's okay with you to do it, if the students could give their speeches while they're seated and run their PowerPoints just as I'm doing right now, then that is kind of, technology speaking, the easier way to go. But if you do want them to stand, then you can manipulate the audio and video screen to make that better. So the one other thing I want to show you about the in-session invites is the tools menu, which is right over my head here. I said that the tools menu is alphabetical, and we've already talked about farther down in there it says telephony, and if you have a student who's having audio issues, that's another option for them. But about halfway down alphabetically it says in-session invite. If you hover over that piece of the drop-down menu, then a little link pops out to the side that says Invite New Participant, and somehow that turned into Start Sharing instead. But if you click on Invite New Participant, then what you will get is a little dialog box that pops up right in the middle of your screen with an invitation message, a really long URL, and an opportunity to push a button that says Compose Email. So there's good and there's bad in that. We can't actually compose email by pushing that button because that wants to feed to Outlook and we don't use Outlook. But what you can do is triple left click, 1, 2, 3, on that long URL, and it'll highlight the whole thing. And then you can put it in an email. You can put it, as I did, in the Develop You calendar so that you could see it when you were signing up. You could send it out to another colleague that you wanted to participate in the class. You could put it inside Blackboard if you wanted to. There's a lot of different places where you could hold that information. But back to Bob. When your students are giving presentations, the other thing that they will have to do, as you mentioned, you want them to run their own PowerPoints. So you have two options on that. Either you have them email that PowerPoint to you and you load it because as the instructor you have the power to do that, or you give them moderator privileges. We talked about doing that while you were setting up the session. If you don't want all of your students to have moderator privileges all the time, then we can do it right here while this course is running. And I'm going to do that for you guys right now, and you'll see when that happens that more buttons suddenly appear on your screen. While I'm doing that, just take a look at the little note of caution on the bottom. Don't let your students take over the whiteboard. They will have the power, just as you're going to have the power, to push all the buttons in here. And sometimes it's good when you've just given the students the privileges to give them a little activity where they can push buttons to their heart's content, and then you're not actually disrupting class. So the one button that I'm going to ask you not to push when you get the privileges, and you'll see it when you do, is the recording button in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. That's because if you stop the recording now, we can start a new one, but it will actually appear in that recordings list as two separate recordings. So hang on just a second. What I'm doing is going into the participants list, and beside your name, when you hover over any person in the participants list, you'll then see a row of icons, a microphone, a camera, a pencil, a little globe, and a little drop-down menu. And in that drop-down menu, near the bottom, it says Give Moderator Privileges. And then it will say, do you want to confirm? And you can say yes, and give that person moderator privileges. And if you don't want them to keep those moderator privileges, once they have them, you can go back into that drop-down menu and take them away. But one other thing happened when I gave you guys moderator privileges. The participants panel is alphabetical by first name. And because Bob and Candy have names that are earlier in the alphabet than mine is, when I gave you moderator privileges, the participants list reorganized and pushed Bob up to the top and me closer to the bottom. Only Michael didn't move. Sorry about that. But that is something to keep track of if you do give your students moderator privileges during the course, just so that you don't lose track of where you are in that participants list. You can also, if you have a lot of students and you want to do this, just as you can pop that audio and video panel out, you can left click and hold on the word participants and then drag that panel out from this left-hand column, and then that double-sided arrow will appear again, and you can make that list the length of your screen if you like. And then if you would like to put it back into this left-hand column, you just have to left-click, hold, and drag it back in, and it'll pop right back in. So now you all have moderator privileges. Woohoo! So, do you now see lots of different buttons that you didn't see before? Hopefully what you can see is 3 big icons right there. You can see a narrow vertical list of icons right next to the participants list. And then, as I said, please don't touch, in the right-hand corner, the recording button and another button that says load content. So these are all part of the moderator privileges. If you go up into that tools menu, now you can, when you just click on the word tools, you can see an awful lot of options that you have to use different tools with your students. So now that you have privileges, one of the other buttons that you can see, and it just looks like text, right here it says New Page. You can, when you push this button, create a blank white page, just like that, in your course. If you want to break from your lesson plan, if you want to give your students an opportunity to kind of do things, there you go, somebody found the pen tool. If you want to give students a chance to play with the tools, then you can create this new page, and you can do that together. So since somebody has already started using the pen tool, go ahead and do it. That's what that vertical menu is, that skinny little strip of menu right next to our names. You've got little not quite emojis, but probably a very old version of emojis. You've got a pen, you've got a text box, you can make shapes. At the bottom of it, there's clip art, so there's cool like maps and stuff. In that clip art menu, there's, if anybody teaches math or economics or accounting or statistics, this is a great find, because there, oh, somebody found the periodic table. Great. There are math operators, there are logic symbols, there are stat symbols in here that you could copy and paste, there you go, without having to write them yourself. But while you're doing that, I want to point out one thing that's new to VISL this semester that you can use now that you've got access to your pen tools. I don't have one of these for every one of you right this second, but let me show you this. See my shiny silver tablet right here? You have the option, if you are teaching a VISL course, to use one of these. It's from a manufacturer called Wacom. It's probably Wacom, but I like Wacom. And they make tablets for graphic designers that come with these little stylus pens that you can then actually use to write, and I'm going to try to do it here. You can write on your whiteboard in sort of legible handwriting. If you don't have one of these tablets, and if you don't want to borrow one from the university, they're only about $100 to buy. If you wanted to keep one for yourself, then they're very easy to use. They're about as close to plug and play as it gets. If you are somebody who likes to write on a whiteboard, then I recommend that you either borrow one from us at the university or you get yourself one. They're a USB connection. You have to download the driver from the Wacom website, yes, the campuses have them. The campuses have more than one, and you just need to talk to your ADC to find out who's keeping them so that you can check one out. They'll want it back. You know, of course they're going to want it back, but they're really easy. They're so easy to use. And I had to do one small bit of customization for mine. Once you've downloaded that driver, which is a snap, it's very easy, then if you're right-handed, you're all done. I'm going to type it into the box. Michael, hang on. There it is. That's the full name of it. They come in different sizes. We're using the small ones. And what's cool about them is the silver screen corresponds to your entire screen. So anywhere that you write is, it'll show up on that spot in your screen. The other thing that's nice about them is if you don't have your pen tool turned on, you can still use the stylus like a mouse, like you're clicking a mouse. And because they're pen and touch, you can also use your finger as a mouse. So if I want to advance this slide, I can do it with my finger, and I could do it with the stylus as well. Like I said, the one piece of customization I had to do, I'm left-handed, so I had to actually open up the driver, and there's one button you push where it says orient to left or right hand, because these were made for graphic designers, so they're really sensitive. So the tool knows if you're holding the pen like this or you're holding the pen like this. And more of your handwriting will show up. It'll recognize it better if you're oriented to the hand that you write with. Some people really like these. Some people don't need them at all. If you think you might want to try it out, then get a hold of your ADC and find out if you can get one from your campus. We purchased enough so that every campus would have a couple of them, and I don't think they're all checked out yet. So go ahead and ask. And if we find that we need more of them, then let me know that. If we're really short on them, let me know, and I'll see if we can get some more. But that's there to help you use your whiteboard more effectively, because you don't only have a pen tool, you've also got, let's see if I can, if you turn on your pen tool by clicking on the actual little icon of the pen, then you will see a colored square, a little numbered percentage, and something that says stroke with a number next to it. And those are all easily manipulated. If you actually click on the color, the box, the square that's colored in, then you can change the color. You'll get a whole color spectrum pops up, and you can make adjustments to that. See, somebody found the colors. And you can change the size of your pen nib, and then the little numbered percentage with an arrow next to it, that's for transparency. So right now, my yellow pen was at 100%, so you can see where it kind of cut off part of my name there. If I change the opacity, now I have a highlighter. So if you like to write on your screen, if you like to highlight things, then with or without this tablet tool, you've got that capability here inside of Collaborate. And anytime you want to put away those tools, you just have to go back up to the top icon in that vertical menu and click it, Sometimes you have to double click it. Yes, it is similar to Photoshop, Bob. And then you'll collapse the different pieces of that menu. It's still there for you to use it again, but it allows you to move on to other things. So on that note, we're going to move on to other things because I want you guys to be able to load content. So here's how you do that. Because you've got this big whiteboard, that's the biggest piece of real estate you have inside Collaborate. The tool that it really wants you to use with it is PowerPoint. You can use other things, and we'll show you how to do that. You can share your screen like I did before to show you how to set the sessions up in Blackboard. You can open up different applications, like different files that you might have open. You can take a web tour, say, somebody found the advanced arrows. But you've got this great big white space, so it makes sense to use PowerPoint. Haha. So there we are. We're right on the page that I wanted us to be on. Oh, go back to that. So you got that load there. Thank you. You got the load content button up in that right-hand corner. This is how, if you do have your students do presentation, this is how you'll have them put their own information in. So let's do it. Does everybody have PowerPoint on their computer? Okay, Candy does. If anybody doesn't, then that's okay. Don't worry about it, and we'll have you do it another time. But, okay, I can see Candy and Bob have it. How about you? Oh, Michael gave me the check mark. Okay, so go ahead, open up PowerPoint, make yourself one slide. Doesn't have to be fancy. It can be anything you want. Just put your name on it and whatever subject you teach, and then point number 3, and I don't know how my numbered formatting got messed up there, but point number 3, there's only one point number 3, is the most important thing there. You have to save the file and you have to close PowerPoint. That's so that when you push that load content button, Collaborate will go search for that file on your computer and will find it and pull that content into Collaborate. In order to do that, the file has to be stabilized by saving it and close. When you push the load content button, and you're welcome to do that anytime your slide is ready, you will see something really strange and possibly terrifying happen if you've never done this before. What Collaborate is going to do when it locates your file is open it up and then look like it's erasing it. It's going to go blank white for a second. There's Candy. Okay. It's not erasing. What it's actually doing, you can think of it like flash photography. It's taking a picture of the information in that slide and embedding it inside of Blackboard Collaborate's whiteboard. That's also why the file has to be closed, because it has to be able to get in there and take that snapshot of that information. Okay, so Candy's slide is up. Anybody else want to, Michael, Bob, you want to put a slide in there? If not, don't worry about it. We can use Candy's as an example. But it's kind of fun to do it. Okay, so Candy's got a slide here. Since you all now have the power to look at all of the slides, in that upper right-hand corner, you should see a little horizontal menu, and right now, you should see Candy's name in that little text box, because it's her slide that's open, and that is the title of her slide. If you click on the down arrow that's beside her name, you can see not only all of the rest of the slides that are in my PowerPoint, but one really important thing is this. This is the slide that was open before Candy loaded her slide. There's Candy's slide. There's the slide that would have come after my PowerPoint icebreaker. If you do have your students do presentations, and Bob, I know you're going to do this, just make sure you know that whatever slide you have open, as soon as you have the students push load content, their information will pop in right after that open slide. Collaborate will not sort them down to the end of your presentation. What you can do, if you want to keep the slides in order, is since you have access to that little drop-down arrow, oh, it keeps going back to start sharing. Since you have access to that little drop-down menu, what you can do is scroll to the end of your slides. In my case, there we go. There's something to look forward to. This is our last slide. If you want your students to put in presentations, do this. Go to your last slide, leave it open, and then have the students load their content, so then you can keep it all in order. The other really good thing to know is, just as you can see congratulations on the slide itself, you can see congratulations in the little text box. That's the title of the slide. If you click on the drop-down arrow to show you all the rest of my slides, you can see that some of them just say slide 33, slide 35. They don't have titles on them. So it is really in your best interest to title your slides. Otherwise, you'll just have a long list of numbers, and then it's hard to remember what everything is. Oh, Michael. Okay. Don't worry about this right now. It could be a connection issue. It could be a software issue. So before you call CSC, Michael, when we're done, create yourself a room. Oh, there's Bob. So create yourself a room, and then try to do it there. If you can't do it in any session, then chances are there's something that's not talking to something else on your computer, and then yes, call CSC.
Yeah, Chris, I did that. I've tried that, and I'll try it again.
Not
but
working.
We'll see. I mean, I had to do
Okay.
two class sessions on Collaborate, and my workaround was to share the application. That seemed okay.
Which can.
Yeah, it's you know not ideal, but it works.
Yeah, in a pinch, what you can't always do is open up your PowerPoint on your desktop and then share your screen. And then you can just manipulate the PowerPoint on your desktop. Putting it inside the Collaborate session itself makes it a little easier to manipulate, that you don't have to keep going back and forth to things, but you can't always do it that way. And now Bob was loading things, and we're moving around in the slide deck, and I'm not sure where we are anymore. So there it is. Okay, I had the last slide open, and just as I said to Bob, here's what you need to do, he did it. So he put his slide in while my last slide was open. So here he is at the end of my slide presentation. So this is also a good thing for you to know if you want to use, say, more than one PowerPoint in your class. If you had a couple of short ones that you wanted to string back to back, your options there are open them up before class and just merge the files, make one long slide deck, or you can load them in one at a time in here. Just make sure you advance to that last slide so that when you start loading the next one, they'll be in order. Haha, I see lots of questions about videos. When you have load content working, you can use Word documents. You don't have to load content to do a Word document. That's an application share, and I'll show you how that one works too. Videos are the one thing, if you have short videos, then you can use them in here through a web tour. If you have longer videos, you may want to put that in your Blackboard shell and put a link to your Blackboard shell, because they tend to be a hog on bandwidth. But the one type of video that you can never make work in a Blackboard Collaborate session is a DVD. And that is because DVDs are compressed down so much to fit a huge amount of data onto that disk that the bandwidth simply cannot keep up. So much data is trying to transmit through that DVD that you're then trying to transmit through Collaborate. What you end up with is, at best, something that looks like a waterfall. You know, it's just filtering in a line at a time on your screen, and that's what the students see. Or it's just static. They can't see it at all. Thankfully, there's a lot of stuff out there on YouTube now. YouTube has become a huge educational channel. And yes, you can, Michael, you can open a YouTube video in here under the web tour. And I just saw that, I think it was Paramount, has actually begun loading whole classic movies onto YouTube. So you could actually have students watch a whole movie. I'm sure once they've done it, more people will start doing it as well. So you do have options in terms of video. You just have to know how to make it work with this tool. So now that you guys have loaded content, that wasn't too hard, right? You guys were able to do that. It's going to be just that easy for your students as well. If for any reason, like Michael, you were just having that trouble loading the content yourself, if you have a student in that situation, what you can always do is have them email that PowerPoint to you, and then you can load the content for them. You'll have the same load content button as they will, and all you'll have to do is minimize your Collaborate screen for a second, go to your email, and get their PowerPoint. You'll have to save their PowerPoint on your on the computer that you're working on, so that Collaborate will find it. But there's a lot of ways to work around a lot of the stuff in here. But I'm looking at the clock. We are going to move on to a deeper discussion of PowerPoint in your VISL class. So why don't we take a quick break? My voice is getting a little scratchy. If you would like to get up and stretch, grab a snack, go to the restroom. Here is something that I want you guys to see before we go. Underneath the talk and video buttons, in the participants panel, underneath the first name there, you got 4 little icons. One of them, again, is little emoticons. One, I know, Michael, you've been using this already, is a little check mark. There's the raise hand button, so that's what it looks like. You can see it next to my name now. And if I click it again, that'll go away. And then beside that, there's Bob. Are you asking a question, or did you just find the button? Okay. That's the ding sound that I was saying. If you choose that raise hand on entry, as your students come into class, every one of them will make that little doorbell ding. But the one button we haven't talked about is the bust with the clock. That is your away button. If you click on that, now you can see next to my name, it says away. So that's a good habit to get your students into, and you. If you take breaks, turn on your away button, have them turn on the away button so that you're not, looking for them and they're not there, or you don't call on them and they're not there. Say somebody has to go to the restroom and it's not break time, they can just turn on the away button and then you're not wondering where they are. So now that my away button is on, I'm going to encourage all of you to put yours on, and let's take 5 minutes, which means that we will be back at 6:21. Okay, let's take a break. Okay, 6:21. Here we all are, ready to move on to another section of VISL instruction training. We are going to talk a little bit about kind of the elephant in the room. You've got this giant whiteboard right in front of you, and PowerPoint is the tool that Blackboard Collaborate likes best. So, if you're not a fan of PowerPoint, you don't have to use it. Oh, thank you, Michael, for that. That's fantastic. If you're not a fan of PowerPoint, you don't have to use it. You know, we've been talking about different things that you can do, and we'll walk through those step by step. But it's here. It's so easy to do. You might as well take advantage of it. So one thing that you can do to your advantage is use PowerPoint to put up a little visual introduction. I borrowed this one from a friend of mine. This is the slide that she would post from her actual course that she taught in VISL so that the students could see that they were in the right place. There's the course name and number. That's the time that class starts. Here's who she is, a picture of her, and how you download materials, how you get ready for class before class begins. I had one of those. There. Same idea. Put the agenda on there. There's my picture so you know it's me. There's, you know, you're in the right place. And I see, Bob, you've got a question there. Is there any way to copy and paste from the chat box? You can. You can actually, if you left click and left click, hold, and drag over information that's in the chat box, you can then, let me see, I don't know if you can control C it. Let me see what happens if I do that. There it is. You can. You can copy, you can right click and copy, or you can control C and then paste it. You can paste it back into the chat box. You could paste it if you used the text box icon in that vertical menu. You could paste it right into your whiteboard. And there I see. So there's an example of something that you guys can do. Candy just had probably a blip, and she logged out and she came back in. But it's good that she did that, because then I can show you one other thing that happened. She popped back down to the bottom of our participants menu, because when you log out and come back in, oh, it just kicked her out. Okay, so when you log out and come back in, and that can happen too. You can have a blip in the bandwidth and it just disrupts your connection. Not a big deal, just come back. But if you are not the instructor of record, when you come back, you'll go back to your default access setting. In this case, you were all participants when we began, so now Candy is a participant again. But you can go back into that little drop-down menu and give her back moderator privileges. That's a little, it can be a little bit of a distraction if that happens with a lot of students. And you never know, given the connections on the campus or in their own computers. That's also why I tend not to make people moderators unless they need to be moderators, because then if they do have to leave and come back, I have to give them privileges all over again. If you set that up when you're creating the session in that the room attributes panel, then they'll have those privileges when they come back. Otherwise, they become participants again. So this is something, this is the first time I'm going to say this. I'm going to say it plenty of times in this class. Steal everything. So all of these things that I'm telling you, please use them in your own class. You see this slide that I have up here on the screen. Make one just like it. I'm going to send you the PowerPoint for our session tonight, so you'll have all of this information already. Use everything you want. Use everything that you like and make it your own. Here's another word of caution about using PowerPoint. in your Blackboard Collaborate session. I got a nice bulleted list here. It's a pertinent slide. There's plenty of good information here. Is anybody reading the slide, or is everybody looking at the dog? It's okay if you're looking at the dog. Oh, all right, so Michael's reading the slide. Now, you may have students who are drawn to the words. You guys are great. But you could also have students who go straight to the picture. And if you're that kind of person and you go straight to the picture, then it could be detracting from the words that you've actually put on the slide. So just think about the clip art that you put on there. I know Microsoft Office took their clip art out, but if you Google free clip art, there's still free clip art out there that you can use. Just make sure that it fits in with what you're trying to get across. This is an example of using an image that you can actually get some mileage out of in your course. So I've just put together, and I ended up copying and pasting this in. I made a little chart in an Excel spreadsheet, colored it in so it would show up better on my screen here. And then this is something that we could do together. You could have your students do this. Everybody, if you gave them moderator privileges, you could either use the pen tool or you could use the text box tool. And you could type in information. You could change this up if you wanted to, so that you assigned columns to different students, or you had them work in teams, or you could make a competition out of it, and break this up any way you like to in your class. And it doesn't have to be a chart about fruits and vegetables. Make it pertain to your class. So you don't have to worry that images might work against you. You just have to know how to use them. Like screenshots. You can use screenshots. This one's very old. I'm sorry about that. I haven't updated it. But it's good and it's bad. I put it up here for a reason. One, because you can use screenshots. And please take note at the bottom, if you wanted to take a screenshot of Blackboard Collaborate while it's open, you can't do control print screen. Like if you wanted to do that on this session right now, control print screen won't pick it up. But if you're using a Davenport computer, then every one of those has a snipping tool embedded within it. That it's just a little add-on piece that you can, if you go into the Start menu and type snip, it'll pop right up. And you can make that. You can use Snagit, but that's a 30-day free trial. You can use, there's lots of free ones. I think Jing has the same kind of snipping tool within it. So you can get screenshots if you want to use them. They're great for pulling in current information. But while I did make a great choice and pull in sort of current information, it's from the last decade, then there's still a problem with what I've done here. What do you think that is? What could be the problem with this screenshot? Michael's going for it. Yeah, you can't read the text because I put the whole screen. So which story am I talking about? Do I want you to know about the Chinese swimmer who's accused of doping? Do I want you to know about India's power grid? Do I want you to have the refinance advice in the ad that's on the side of the screen? Aha. Candy, I think you're having a bandwidth slowdown. You might want to, and I can see that you've got a little bit of a, like a little red warning text on your participants menu. You might want to log out and come back in again. But, yeah, text is too small here. So think about that when you do take screenshots. Focus on the information that you want to share. Blow it up a little bigger so that when you put it into the PowerPoint, it'll show up in a size that the students can actually see. That does not mean that you can't use complicated images. Look at this one. Again, clip art, it's out there. You can find these images. And sometimes I teach the humanities course. So if I was teaching the humanities course, which is arts and culture, and I wanted to talk about, this is Van Gogh's Starry Night, and I wanted to talk about the use of texture in art. While you cannot actually touch this, and the visual quality is not the same as if you were looking at the real painting, or even a photograph, a good quality photograph of that painting, you can still see some of the texture that we're talking about. You can see all of the very thick strokes that Van Gogh is using to create that nighttime sky, to create the branches within the tree, to create even the rooftops and the sides of the hills. And we could talk about that, why he did that, and how that became kind of his trademark. It comes through. Enough of it comes through that your students will be able to see it too. But just as with the screenshot, there are plenty of other things that you can do in PowerPoint that are not the greatest. Here is one very important thing to know. Web links don't work. That's because when you load the content like we did before, what you have is snapshots of your PowerPoint slides. So they have flattened out. They're just pictures of what you put into PowerPoint. So if you had animations, like star wipes or fades, or the image progresses through different animations in the slide, that won't come through. You'll see the very last animation at the end of that string. And web links are just pictures. You can, as we have done, put your web links, type them into the chat box. They are live there. Or if you wanted everyone to go to that site, you can do that as a web tour. There's Candy. Okay. So, those things don't necessarily work in PowerPoint, in Blackboard Collaborate. But have you ever heard of death by PowerPoint? You've probably heard of death by PowerPoint. It happens. We've all been guilty of it at one time or another. Doing that in a regular classroom can be distracting enough. Doing it in here, kind of intensifies everything that's wrong with death by PowerPoint. So I have put this slide up here as an example of what not to do. Can you tell me why? What's wrong with it? Don't be afraid. Let me have it. What's wrong with this slide? Yep. Too busy, too much. Yes. So I made sure this is actual content from one of my courses. So Candy, you probably recognize some of this. You teach the same course, I think. So from the diversity course, if we were going to talk about institutional racism, I might want people to know this. But I've done a number of things here that are going to detract from the learning because people are too busy trying to figure out what's going on with this slide. There's too much color in a lot of bad places. There's different sizes of font. There's a lot of small font. There's a lot of shading on the font. That's an actual, what is it? I think it's called a text effect. You know how you can make little shadows? You can make 3D text. I did that here so you can see how badly it comes through when you put it into this format. Yes, Candy, if you're having trouble connecting and it just doesn't work out for you, yeah, I will make sure I get you a copy of the whole presentation. And you'll have the PowerPoint. But these are all kinds of things that one at a time, they don't come through well in this format. When you put them all together, then you're really working against yourself, because I've been talking through this whole thing while the slide's up, but you could do that too. Chances are your students are not going to be listening to you. They're going to be trying to read what's on the slide. Don't fall into that trap. The other thing I would tell you is, even if you made it crystal clear, you had it nice and crisp, and they could understand, see all the words on there, and you didn't have the background color kind of going into that ombre setting at the bottom. Avoid the temptation to put a lot of text on a slide. I had said a couple slides ago, where did I say it? Less is more. Limit your text to key points. That is because if you notice that your students are struggling here, or even if you don't notice that your students are struggling here, the more you write, the more information you put on a single slide, the more tempted you might be to just read the whole thing to them. And then you've kind of defeated the purpose of any interaction. If you just wanted them to have the information on the slides, you could just give them the PowerPoint. The students didn't come to class to read your PowerPoint. They came to interact with you. They want to know what you know. They want you to bring these slides to life. They know that there's more that you know beyond what's on these slides. So this, we're not going to take another break because we just took a break, but this is, again, when I send you this PowerPoint, use this if you would like to. Nice and crisp. Again, got your free clip art. Let you know exactly what's happening. And for all the slides that I put in, I chose a really simple background so that there's not a lot of distraction on the slide itself. The template's pretty easy on the eye. So yes, Michael is saying text has to be easily legible so that the person with the worst eyesight in the back of the room can see it. Yeah. You still have to think about those things when you're using this format. Everyone is going to be closer to the screen. They'll all have their personal view of the screen, but that doesn't mean that that is still not hard to read. There's a lot going on in there, and ultimately it detracts from the message that you're trying to send. So with that in mind, let's talk about pedagogy. We've talked about some of the tools. There will be more, trust me. We've talked about using the visuals. So now let's talk about the course itself, beyond the tools. You do have to, as the bullet points say here, you do have to incorporate technology and tools. You do have to keep your students engaged. And using the tools can help you do that. But the other thing you have to do is think about your course content. You will have to make some adaptations. Just like I said, web links don't work on the PowerPoint slides, so you have to make that adaptation. There are other ways that you can share them. In the chat box, through a web tour, there's lots of ways to do it. But you have to actually think about it ahead of time. Does anybody teach in more than one format? Do you teach like in-seat and online? Do you teach blended and online, or blended and in-seat? Anybody teach a combination of courses? Aha. So, can you, okay, so Michael and Bob are both saying that they are teaching different formatted courses. If you have, let's say, a 7-week blended course that meets in the evening, so you've got one 4-hour session one night a week, Can you lecture for 4 hours? It's not a challenge. I'm not saying, can you do it? But if you lecture for 4 hours, are your students there with you? Oh, Bob's got a blended in the fall second session. Okay. So, maybe you can. Michael's saying no. Maybe you could. Maybe you could talk for 4 hours straight. Oh, you got a blended VISL. Okay. I wouldn't advise it. I would not advise that you try to do that, because it's hard for you to do it, first of all. I don't want to hear myself talk for 4 hours. I barely want to hear myself talk for the whole 3 hours that I'm talking to you tonight. I want more interaction. Yep, there you go. Try to incorporate more interaction. The same thing is true here, and we have the added dimension of the technology. We have to communicate through Blackboard Collaborate. And I'm not asking for a show of hands on here, but it's so easy to get distracted. Anybody got their email open? Anybody working on something else? Anybody looking at Facebook while we're running this class? If you are, it's completely okay. But know that your students are going to do that too, which is why it's really important to try to keep them with you. And to do that, you need to make some adaptations. There you go, Bob. You've got plenty of things to mix it up. So that's the kind of thing that you've got to think about. Fortunately, here's some tips that I want to share with you. It's the 3 F's. So just think of it that way. First, here we are. You've got, right now, actually we have 5 course formats. We've got the 4 that are listed here, and we are also doing, right now just in the MBA program, competency-based, which is a specific kind of asynchronous online. So we're actually teaching 5 different ways. And the same stuff will not work across all of the formats. The content, the information, the subject matter will, but the way you present it needs to change in order to be most effective in the format that you're teaching. So here are some things that work well in this format. We've got different kinds of learning strategies, learning or teaching strategies, some people would call them, that we like to use at Davenport anyway. And these are 5 things that we like to do at Davenport that keep students engaged, keep them with you, keep them doing things. They help to deepen learning. So has anybody heard of any of these strategies? And I have a little cheat sheet here because I have some samples that I want to share with you. So anybody heard of any of these? Do you use any of these? Chances are you do, even if you don't call it this. Okay, Michael says yes. Bob's, there you go. Most of them. So what do you guys do? What kind of exercises? I know, Bob, you had a bunch of things listed that you have quizzes and homework and speeches. What else do you guys do? Yeah, ask some questions. Easy enough to do. Presentations, absolutely. I love student presentations. I see Bob is typing something else. So while Bob is typing away there, let me share with you some of the examples that I was going to share with you just so that you had something else up your sleeve. Presentations, actually, Michael, you beat me to it. Peer review. Oh, Absolutely. Yes. So, a lot of this stuff fits into these 5 strategies. Presentations is constructive learning. Constructivism goes all the way back to John Dewey. That's 100 years ago, the beginnings of educational pedagogy. So it really just means that you are getting the students involved so that they are constructing meaning. It's a way to deepen understanding, and having them do presentations just like you do in COM 120. That's a great way to deepen learning. They really are personally involved and invested in that material when they've had to put it together themselves. We're going to talk about that. Oh, look, Bob's ahead of me. We're going to talk about flipping the class. Yay! So, quickly, a couple other things that I have on my list. Active learning, one thing you can do is a think, pair, share. Anybody ever done that? Do you know what that is? I'm going to type it in the box. Think, pair, share is it's kind of akin to presentations. It's kind of akin to peer review. It's kind of akin to discussions. It kind of is, it's the best of a lot of different things. When you think, pair, share, you can do an individual reflective exercise where you put a question out to the students and you have them individually come up with their own answer. Then you pair them so they work with a partner and they compare their answers, and then they have the opportunity to see it from one other perspective. Maybe they decide one is better than the other. Maybe they put them together to form one from the two of them. However that works for them. Then you share by bringing the class back together, and you debrief as a group so that everybody gets a chance to hear all of the different perspectives that have been going on, and everybody has an opportunity to relearn the information in a new way. So constructive learning, that's your presentations, love them. Authentic learning is real world. That is getting your students involved in actual real life issues. Let me get to that in a second, Bob. So case studies. Case studies definitely work. Cooperative learning, groups. And you can do group work in here. They cannot get away from group work in here. And reflective learning, intentional learning, that can be as easy as journals and written assignments. And think about the question I asked at the bottom there about how you learn. Think about that, because whichever way you learn, that's kind of be the way you gravitate toward the assignments you create. If you're a visual learner, then you're gonna front load a lot more stuff into your course that's focused on visual learning. And you may not be doing that intentionally. That's just the way that you're processing the information. So you may not even be thinking that a student may process it in a different way. That's why I've tried to put a number of things on this list so that you've got some options. So Bob, you're asking if Prezi will load. Prezi will not load, but that doesn't mean you can't use Prezi. You can't put a Prezi into the whiteboard. What you can do is share your desktop screen and run the Prezi there. Again, because Prezi is all about animations and it's all about that movement, so it won't actually embed into the whiteboard. But if you want to run a Prezi, then share your screen and run it from there so your students can see it moving and doing all of the really cool stuff that Prezi does. Okay. Flipping. Bob beat me to the punch on this one. Have you flipped a class before? I know Bob has. So, have you flipped a class? Do you know what it means? Why do I think you should do it here? No, I'm assuming, okay, Bob's typing, go. If you haven't, it's okay. It's, you know, chances are, just like with those learning strategies, you've used some of them, You maybe just didn't call them that. Oh yeah, so okay, Bob, you've got the students are teaching the material as your flip. That's one way to do it. There's a lot of ways to flip your class. Basically, here's what it means. And I'm not going to read this to you. I'm going to let you read it. But the idea is, if you have those more reflective individual assignments, long readings, papers that they need to write, longer videos that they would need to watch, they do that, or lectures. They do that. The students consume that outside of the class time. So Bob, this would be, if you're teaching blended VISL, then this would be the place where you would want to put that information into the Blackboard shell. You've got links to longer videos. You've got maybe a PowerPoint that you want them to click through on their own. You've got associated readings that you want to post in your Blackboard shell, papers that you want them to write, they can do it in there, journals that you want them to keep, online discussions that you want them to be able to put more thought into. You can put it all in Blackboard. And then when you use your class time, you can focus on interactive activities. You can do things that deepen the learning that they've been doing on their own. So yes, one of the options, as Bob said, is you can have the students do the presentations that teach the material. Yes, Michael is asking, can you record lectures? That's the oldest, that's classic flipping. And what you can do, you can do it inside of Blackboard. It doesn't like you, the options that you have inside Blackboard don't like you to take exorbitant sums of time to record. If you want to record longer lectures, then I would say your choices, your best options are something like Camtasia, which would give you unlimited time to record, but then you've also got, you can get a 30-day free trial of Camtasia, but then you'd have to buy it, or you can maybe get Camtasia Relay, which is a little cheaper, but you still got to buy it. There are cheaper versions or free versions out there like Screencast-O-Matic, but I think there are time limits on those. Yeah, oh, Bob has recorded and put stuff in announcements. Yes, you can. You can record an audio announcement. It's very easy to do it. There's a button right in the announcements tool that lets you do that. You've got some options if you want to record information like lectures and then put them into Blackboard. What you can also do, yep, feedback too, absolutely. If you don't have the power to record, what you can also do is type your lectures out. Type them out like a script or like a paper and put those into Blackboard, and then your students just have to read them. So there's a lot of different ways that you could come at this. Excuse me, itchy. But that's the basic idea, that you're putting these longer, individually digestible events into the part of your course where the students can take their time on their own and access that information. Then, when you come together, you are assuming that they've done it. You can assign points, you know, if you make it exercises, or if they're dependent, the participation that they have in class is dependent on them having consumed that information, so they know what they're talking about. That's another way to do it. But you can build activities. You can have discussions in class. You can do things that deepen that learning so that you are taking advantage of the time you have together, and you're doing things that keep you engaged. And that's really important in this kind of format, because it's so easy to get lost. It's so easy to kind of check out from the technology. You know, as I said to you when we started this, please don't do what I'm doing. I'm doing way too much talking, and it's only because I got a lot of ground to cover in a short amount of time, and I want to make sure we get to it. But here's what you can do. Here's the way I like to do it. You know, as I said, you got all those learning strategies, activities that we were just talking about. The other thing that I do is focus on time. Segment your time. If you are staring at one 4-hour block of time in a single evening once a week, that can be very intimidating. You know you can't lecture for 4 hours, so what are you going to do with that amount of time? Don't let that overpower you. What you have is lots of little blocks of time that add up to 4 hours. Or even if you're not in that 4-hour block, let's say you're teaching a 50-minute class 3 times a week. You've got, sure, 3 50-minute sessions, but you've got smaller pieces of time inside that 50-minute session that you can put together in different ways to cover that whole course. So you can, you know, if you do have that, sometimes I teach in the evening, sometimes too, and even if it's not 4 hours, if it's 3 hours, I'm still thinking about, I've got 3 one-hour segments. And within those 3 hours, even if I repeated it 3 times, I could do a mini lecture for like 10 minutes, talk about a specific topic, and then we could do something for the next 10, 15, 20 minutes that allows us to really kind of dig more deeply into it. We could have a discussion, we could do an activity, we could work our way through a case study, we could watch a video, we could do some role plays, we could have a debate, we could do a quiz bowl, lots of stuff that we can do. Or you could always have them write in response to that 10-minute lecture and say you left it with a question at the end and you want them to take a few minutes to really capture their thoughts. So you have them do a short writing exercise, or you could always give them a quiz, or you know, you've got lots of ways to slice and dice that time. And when you do that, then you not only make it a little easier on yourself in that you're not staring down this huge block of time that you have to fill up, but you're also making it easier on the students because you're giving them more opportunities to get engaged. You're giving them more chances to come at the information from different angles. And, like I put in at the bottom, 2 things. You've always got break times. Don't forget to take breaks. And don't forget that you can always do quizzes and tests. And you've got your Blackboard shell. So anything that you think doesn't work in your real-time session, you can always put that in the Blackboard. Here's an example. This is the FAQ that I took straight from that Develop You course page, and here's just one of the questions, well, 2 of the questions that I put on there. 2 of the biggest issues that instructors and students alike seem to face. And I can't hear my students and they can't hear me. That is the big one. So these are 4 quick things that you could do to address that situation. So what if we took this little piece of individually consumable reading and we turned this into an activity? You take a second and you read through those 4 possibilities, A, B, C, and D, and then we brainstorm together in class, how do we head this off with the pass? What can we do to avoid the issue of I can't hear my students and they can't hear me, knowing that you have these 4 likely possibilities in front of you? How could you proactively keep your students from getting to this problem at all? And I hate to do it while Candy's gone. She's going to jump back in right in the middle of it. But I don't think she's coming back. She just sent me an email. So she may be stuck. But what I was going to show you, another fun thing that you can do, and it's going to be a little weird because there's only a couple of us now, but remember when I was saying that you can do group work inside of Blackboard Collaborate? Watch this. So I took us back to the main room, but you can see underneath our names that those breakout rooms are still there. So you can send students back to those breakout rooms anytime you want. You can see that the button there still says main room, and if you click on it, you'll see the drop-down room with all of the rooms. So the other thing that you can do with this drop-down menu, when your students are doing work in those rooms, they've each got, you guys saw a blank white whiteboard page with a red border around it, and every single one of the breakout rooms gets that. And you could, using this drop-down menu, copy all of those whiteboards into your main whiteboard. They'll pop in just like the PowerPoint slides did right after the last slide you have open. But this would be a great way for everybody to debrief again. Say you were doing a Think, Pair, Share and you wanted to use Blackboard Collaborate to do it. You could all debrief together using those whiteboard screens right here. When you're done with breakout rooms, there is an option in this drop-down menu to close all the breakout rooms. And when you do it, now you guys can see that the breakout rooms are gone. So that's an example of kind of a way that you could take this individually consumable material, turn it into something that we could discuss in class, and then use the technology available inside of Blackboard Collaborate. How did I get us into the breakout rooms? Tools menu. So as I said, there's a lot of stuff hiding in the tools menu, and it is all alphabetical. So 3 items down, it says breakout rooms. If you guys want to create them, you have moderator privileges. Do you want to take a second and mess with them? Haha, you found them. So if you click on Create Breakout Rooms, you get a little pop-up window that says you can name the rooms, you can tell me how many rooms you want, you can change that number, you can distribute as you like. Okay, Michael, you did something. So you created rooms, but you know why we didn't go to them? Because we're all moderators. On that little pop-up screen, there was one thing at the bottom with a checkbox that says include moderators in distribution. That's defaulted to no. If you go back and click that yes, include them, that did it. Now you got it. So that's the fun thing about finding your way around this tool. There's a lot of stuff that you can do in here. There's so much more that, you know, if we had more than 3 hours, I'd be happy to tell you more about it.
Okay, Chris, yeah, I don't know what I did there, but but I have a question that I
Sure.
think is better just asking rather than typing. Okay, so in Collaborate, we're limited to 6 microphones.
Yes.
What about when we do the breakout rooms?
Yeah, you are still limited. So you still have to use that kind of hand-raised protocol,
okay,
where when you get into the breakout room, you just have to tell folks, we're just going to keep using that. When it's my turn to speak, my talk button will be on. When it's your turn to speak, your talk button will be on. And when we're not speaking, we'll turn them off.
Okay, so it's still an aggregate of 6 in all the breakout rooms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a system limitation, unfortunately. We've never been able to go higher than that, and I don't think Blackboard has never said they were going to increase that, so I think it's a bandwidth quality issue that the more mics and videos they have open, the more it pulls on the collective bandwidth and the more it kind of cheapens is not the right word, degrades the experience for everybody.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, here we are. We've been talking about tools. There's more of them. So, here we've got another ring of tools, and I've got a break time slide in entirely the wrong place. It's a little bit after 7, so I think we should take another break now. And I would like to get back. Candy did send me an email that I don't think she's going to be able to reconnect with us, so I want to answer her. So I would like us to take a break. So before we talk about all these tools, and look, we've already done the breakout rooms, so we're way ahead of the game. Let's take a few minutes. Let's take 5 minutes, and so we'll come back at 7:13, and let me address her before she thinks I've forgotten about her. Okay, hang on. Okay, here we are back again for more tools. As I said, breakout rooms. You're already old pros at the breakout rooms. And this is, if your students are all at different sites, say they're all participating from home, say they're spread out over different campuses, they're all remote, then you have the opportunity to bring them together using the breakout rooms. Small group activities can still be done in the VISL classroom. Ha, they will not get out of group work. So just remember, as I said at the bottom there, that you do have to turn your microphone back on when you are going into or coming out of a breakout room. It will default to, it'll just turn off because it's moving you from place to place inside the system. And I'm sorry, I'm just gonna go right past that. We've done it. We've done a little work in breakout rooms because there's more. We've also talked about the whiteboard. So bonus, that's another tool that we've used already. You guys are getting to be great at it. We've played with the tools in the vertical icons menu there. Here's another thing that you can do with your whiteboard. This is, I don't know how you feel about icebreakers. I did not used to like icebreakers, but I really find in this format that they're valuable. You get the students using the tools in non-threatening ways. If you give them enough privileges here to, just for the time it takes to do this kind of an exercise, then this is a way for them to raise their comfort levels. This is not something necessarily that they're going to be graded on, unless you make it a gradable assignment. And it's a way for them to really become familiar with each other, comfortable with the technology, and they get using these tools. So again, I'm going to send you this PowerPoint. Steal it. Chat box. We have used the chat box already. I wanted just to show you one pretty cool thing that you can do with the chat box, and I call that type and wait. So here's an example of that. Just in case you have students who are faster thinkers than others, or who might have to look this answer up to be able to give it to you. If this was a question that you asked of the whole class and said, I want everybody to tell me what the difference is here between a credit and a debit, in order to avoid having one original answer pop into your chat box and then 25 answers that look exactly like it, because now you know that you can't copy and paste from the chat box into the chat box. or 25 I agrees. What you can do is have everybody type into the chat box, but you set a timer. You say, okay, you've got 3 minutes to answer this question. Everybody type, nobody push the enter key. So you just kind of gotta get into the habit. Maybe you want to do some practice drills, because every now and then it's unconscious habit. You may just go ahead and hit that enter key. Not a big deal, but you can make this fun. You can make it, you know, like a drill team, things that you do to get your students into the habit of it. Then the answers will pop in if everybody hits the enter key at about the same time. The answers will pop in one after the other in the order in which Blackboard Collaborate processes them. But you've given everybody enough time to think about and compose an answer to this question. You can also use audio to answer the question. If your students have audio capability, and I put a couple things in here. If they're longer answers, probably audio is the way to go, simply because it takes a long time to type a longer answer. You want your students to talk to you. And a good rule of thumb here, I've got make the students talk every 10 to 15 minutes, even if it's not content driven, even if it's just pulse check. How are you doing? How's your connectivity? Does anybody need a break? What's happening where you are? Anybody have any questions? That kind of thing. You'll keep pulling them back in that way. But you can also use the same question that we did for type and wait with the chat box. You can call on students. Don't be afraid to call on students in this format. You can certainly do that. You can divide them up into groups and have, if they're all at one location, if there are a number of them at one location, you can have them work together. There's a lot of ways that you can use the tools in here. And I'm going over some things kind of quickly, but it's going to be up to you to decide what you want to use out of this tool. There's a lot of options. You don't have to use them all, but find the ones that you like and use those and make them yours. Here's another thing. We've been talking about this. You can go ahead and try to click on this link in this slide. You can see it does nothing. Collaborate took a picture of this slide. This was a live link in the PowerPoint, and here it's gone flat. So we have two options. I can type it into the chat box, or you can use, oh, backwards, it's mirror image. That's a thing to know. Your video is a mirror image, and I always mix that up. So I want to say, oh, go to your icon over there, but it's the opposite of what I think it should be. So the web tour icon, there are three big box icons at the top of your screen. The square with the squiggly pencil. Somebody's there. Ha-ha. Okay. So are you typing that address in? Do you remember what it was? Here it is. Oh, nope, didn't go. There we are. And this, again, this is going to pull on the bandwidth a little bit harder, because that's the other reason why Blackboard Collaborate flattens out your PowerPoint. It's so that it can compress the data down and not pull so hard on the bandwidth so that you guys can all stay connected. But sometimes it takes a few seconds to get to the sites. If you have a really graphic-heavy site, okay, I don't really know why. I'm having a situation where another site just opened up for me outside of Blackboard Collaborate, but I might have pressed a button that I shouldn't have. But what can happen is you can use actual live websites. This one has lots of things. It's got a scrolling home page with different images. It's very graphic driven. But I put it here for a couple of reasons. One, to show you that you can use really rich websites in your course. And two, to show you, oh yeah, see, that's it. Mine opened in a new window too. But it's also, you can also have it open inside the course, and if you've got the Follow Me button checked on, then you can direct the students to the things that you want them to see. There you go. So one of the things that I like about this site, even though I don't snowboard, is on one of the pages in here, I'm going to go back. This actually is good. You could use this. You could use this in a course. You could use this in a business ethics course, because these guys have posted their core values on their website. So they felt it important to be transparent with their customers and show them what they believe in. So they've held themselves accountable to try to live up to these standards. So it is possible to incorporate internet information for your students. And web tours are a great way to do that. You just have to manage kind of the transitions and make sure that it works. I'm going to go back to the whiteboard. I want to take us on a different web tour, and I'm hoping that this one's going to work smoothly. You never know. Remember, if the web tour doesn't work for whatever reason, you have always got the option of putting the web link in the chat box and saying to the students, everybody take 5 minutes, click on that link, you go out to that site, and you'll look at the things that I wanted you to look at, and then we'll come back together. But let me see if this works. Is everybody at YouTube? Okay. There's plenty of not safe for work information on YouTube, but I had said before, YouTube is a huge educational clearinghouse now. There is so much. Oh, Bob, I don't know why you're not coming with us to YouTube. But that's another reason why I ask, because there's something, and I'm not sure what it is, that's preventing Bob from coming with us to YouTube, and I don't know why that is. But if that was the case, then what I would do is say, okay, here's where we went. So when we got to that page, Bob, what I did was type business ethics into the chat box, and that pulled up a page full of business ethics videos. And one of them is a TED Talk, and there's another video from a Center for Applied Ethics. There's another video on corporate social responsibility. So I could have us view this together. I could have us, that's very weird, and my applications are jumping around. So I am thinking that there is something pulling hard on the bandwidth tonight. And that's probably one of the reasons why Candy's not here, and that's probably why we're having all this kind of weird jumping around inside the tools, and why Bobby couldn't go with us. When you use these richer tools, and this set of tools, let me see where they were. Here. The first set of tools I called usage tools because they're kind of one-way information. these are response tools because they're much more interactive. You and your students should be able to use them together. Right now, there's something about the connectivity that is not allowing us to use them to the fullest. These are all really optional. You don't have to. You can use them, and I think they deepen the learning. But if they don't work, don't worry about it. You can always find a way to get around it. Here's something that we talked about earlier. I did it already, called application sharing. When the web tours work, again, not tonight perhaps, but when the web tours work, they actually have sound. So you could play YouTube videos with sound, and your students should be able to hear them too. Application sharing is another option. I wouldn't necessarily want to use it with video, though, because it's a lot of data that you're trying to squeeze through Blackboard Collaborate. If there are issues with a web tour, then I would want you to do what I did, which was type the link, type the URL into the chat box and tell the students to go there on their own, because then they're pulling on their own system and they don't have to filter out through Blackboard Collaborate, and neither do you. Application sharing, though, is great if, I can't remember if it was Bob or Michael earlier asking about the Prezi. That's the way you want to share a Prezi with your students, by sharing your screen and then opening Prezi on your screen so that you could run it there, so that you'll have all the animations and click-throughs and movement that Prezi contains. But you don't just have to share your screen. And here I put an example of what students could do with application share. But you could also, and I'm going to try to open one of these up. If you click the double box icon, that's the application share. And it will pop up a little dialog box that shows you available sharing selections. Your desktop is always one of them. Anything else that you want to share as an application share, you want to have fully open on your screen. And then you just need to open up Blackboard Collaborate on top of it so that they're not in the way. But the difference is, when we loaded content, you wanted PowerPoint to be closed because Collaborate had to reach in and grab the information, take pictures of the information, and actually embed it inside Collaborate. When you are application sharing, all Collaborate is doing is providing kind of a window to your screen. So it doesn't want your files to be closed. In this case, it wants your files to be open, so it will be able to look at them through that window. So watch what happens if I click Share here. Now, hopefully what you see is just a Word doc that's got a lot of infographics in it. You will know when you are sharing because you'll see a yellow border around whatever it is you're sharing. In this case, all I'm sharing is the Word document. So hopefully that's all you see. Do you guys see that? Okay. So at least Michael can see it. Bob, if you can't see it, that's okay, because it'll still work on your system. I think you may be having bandwidth issues now as well. Can you see it? Okay. So the good thing to know when you are application sharing, because these files are actually on your computer and Collaborate has only opened up kind of a picture window to look at them, they're live documents. They're open files, so you can work in them. So you could be adding information and making edits doing whatever you would like with these files, and then you just need to save them on your own system. In that yellow border that tells you what you've shared, there's a little icon in the corner that's just a little black square, and that's where you would close the application. It'll stop the sharing, and then you just need to click back over to the whiteboard in order to get back on track to where you were before. But you can do this with lots of different file types. Where did it go? There we are. So now I'm sharing a spreadsheet. And again, this is a live file, so I could change the information in here if I wanted to. I could add more. And so we could work our way through. Let's say you were teaching Excel. That was the course that you were sharing with students, and you wanted them to see how something actually functioned in Excel. You could do that here. You could show them how it works. There is a really advanced function where you could actually give individual students the privilege to work in this file with you. But that is a huge pull on the bandwidth. And if you find that you're already having problems, that's in the Tools menu as well, under the Application Sharing section. But if you find that you're having connectivity issues, you may not want to pursue that just because it's going to mean that your students actually have to kind of reach through Blackboard Collaborate into the file that you have open. Did you like that graphic? I was reaching through Blackboard Collaborate. So these are great things that you could also use. You also, as I said, have the option to share your desktop. You can share another web page. Again, if you wanted students to see a particular web page, but you couldn't get there through the web tour, this is another way that you could go there. Let me see. How about that? There we are. There. That's how I did it before. I shared this web page that was open on my screen. I did not share my desktop, but I'll show you what that looks like. Oh, I've got the same thing open, but watch. Now you can see that there's a lot of stuff on my desktop, and you have the option to share some pieces of it. You can share all of it. So what I do want you to know with these tools, even if there are some things that seem not to cooperate, there is usually a way to get around it and still do what you were planning on doing. Polling is another nice feature that we have in Blackboard Collaborate. Again, if the polling doesn't work, and it usually does, but just in case. This is my backup, polleverywhere.com. Do you guys know about polleverywhere.com? It's lots of fun. It's a free website for educators. It's a polling cloud website where you can use polling in here. There is a polling function. Right now it looks like the check mark and the X, but oh, there's another one. Thank you, Bob. So we have options. I love to do polls. I love to do just these kind of formative checks. If you go back up to the Tools menu, if you want to use the polling in here, and you go to Polling in the Tools menu, if you go to Polling Type, you can actually change the type of poll so that now the answer options that your students have match up with the way I've constructed this question. And if I click on one, then you can see what it looks like when your students answer it. Yeah, I love doing these kind of quizzes and getting live results. The other really nice thing about doing it inside of Collaborate is you get, if you go back into the Tools menu, there's an option there that says Publish Responses to Whiteboard, and you will get this nifty little graph, which you can then, it'll pop right into the center of your screen, but you can, again, left-click, hold, and drag it anywhere you want. You can right-click and copy it and save all of these if you do them every course. If you ask the same question over and over and you want to compare, you've got longitudinal data now and you want to save that and look at it as it changes over time, you can copy this information, right-click to copy the graph and then save it somewhere, either in Blackboard or in a, you can put it in a PowerPoint, you can put it in a Word document, you can put it somewhere that students can get at it later. So this is one more tool. And right now I have a text question, but again, clipart is free. So you could do you could do video questions, I suppose, but you can do picture questions as well. And this is where I put the break time slide. I don't want to take one more. We've got more stuff, so let's press on. Because before we go, I want to make sure we talk a little bit about you and making sure that you feel good about what you're doing. I have thrown an awful lot of information at you, and I want to spend a little time talking about what you can do to make sure you feel good, you feel comfortable, you feel ready to go. So this is just the short list of things that I like to do to make sure I feel ready. The third bullet down there in that list is build a backup plan. So very, very important. The backup plan, as you've seen, we've had some glitches tonight. So we've been able to recover from just about all of them. Even though Candy had to leave because of her connectivity issues, I can still get the information that she's missing to her. We can get her caught up. Very, very infrequently will we have an issue that actually stops the class. Most of the time it's I can't hear, or my video doesn't work, or I didn't go with you on the web tour, or it's an individual student. But every now and then something happens and the technology just fails. In that case, that's where you want your backup plan. We'll talk about that in a little bit more depth. And I did make that video on the Develop Your Course page to take you through it step by step so you can see just how to do it. But don't forget this. You are the subject matter expert. Even if the technology fights with you the whole time, you are the subject matter expert. You know what you are doing. You know what content you need to share with students. Do not let the technology intimidate you. This is another thing that we really want to get instructors into the habit of doing. So I borrowed the visual introduction slide from my friend Linda Hood. Here is the accompanying email that she would send to students before class even begins. Any student that registers in a VISL class gets a university email that says, you have registered for a VISL class. Here's what that means. But they don't always read those emails. Or maybe you had a student that signed up late. Maybe they don't get that email because they got left out of the mass email when it was time for that to go out. This is insurance for you and an opportunity to, again, humanize. Reach out to that student, reach out to all the students. Let them know this is the course that you've signed up for. this is what it means, this is how we're going to make it work for us, here are things that you can do to get ready so that we can hit the ground running on day one. And this will be in the PowerPoint as well. I don't know if you'll be able to read it exactly, but again, make this yours, add the information that you want. Your students will show up in your Blackboard shell usually 3 days before the semester begins. So as soon as they're there, you have the capacity to email them. And yes, okay, Bob is saying he's putting these messages in the announcements. Absolutely, that's another place to go. And you don't have to worry so much about emailing them at that point because they have access to Blackboard. And when they get there, that announcement pops right up and they can see it. Good thinking, Bob. When you do get to class, start on a good note. Talk about what you know, talk about your passion, but then see what I wrote right in the middle of this list. Save an in-depth review of the syllabus for later. Spend a little time. It's very, very worth it in this format in particular. Spend a little time getting your students comfortable. If you dive right into the content in the syllabus and they are not comfortable with this technology, you might lose them. They may feel like they're already falling behind and that they can't handle this. They can. They just need to get a little comfortable with it. We've been doing VISL classes for almost 5 years now, so chances are your students will have encountered this. It's also very much like social connectivity tools out there now. It's not as sophisticated perhaps as something like Skype or WebEx or GoToMeeting. Those cost more money, but this one is actually already integrated into our learning management system, so that's why we go with it. But it's similar to those. Every once in a while, though, you will have a student who is new to this kind of technology, hasn't taken a class like this before, hasn't used a tool similar to it before, and you want to make sure that they feel comfortable. So, in addition to kind of talking them through it here, you want to ask the kind of questions that would identify those students right away. You want to get them touching the tools in non-threatening ways right off the bat. When you do talk about the syllabus, here's another way to make that interactive and incorporate that into the tool. You can say, everybody take 10 minutes and read through that syllabus, and then you hit them with a quiz. Ha-ha! Maybe it's not a grade-bearing quiz, but it makes them engage, and it makes them touch these tools because either they have to audio answer the questions or they have to chat box answer the questions. If that is too intimidating, this is another icebreaker that I like, and it's very easy. If you can read a map of Michigan, then, and you know where you're located, then you can do this. And you might be asking, what if I have students who are not in Michigan? That can happen. I had a student who was in Florida, and actually what she did was she drew a little arrow at the bottom of the page to let me know that she was not in Michigan. But you can use the whiteboard tools. Just give everybody the privileges long enough to use these whiteboard tools, and then they can draw their names or use the text box to write on the map. And they are using the Blackboard Collaborate tools in a non-threatening, non-grade-bearing way. So you're building their comfort level. Okay, back to the backup plan. What I want you to do is think about triage. Most of the time, like I said, you'll have blips. in the technology. I have not encountered a single piece of technology that works 100% of the time. And I've been teaching online for close to a decade. I've been working either in or close to IT for longer than that. And it's not perfect. It works a lot of the time for a lot of the people, but it can still have a glitch here and there. Most of the time it's just that, and you can recover easily from that. Every once in a while you will find that there's a longer, like say the glitch is on your end, you're having the repeated connectivity issues. And that has happened. You know, there have been times when I've tried to run sessions and it wasn't a student that had to drop out and come back, and it was me. In that case, you want to make sure that you are communicating with your students and letting them know, one, that that can happen, and if it does, don't panic. I will log out and log back in. If it's a repeated issue, then what we'll do is we'll contact CSC, but I will do it. I, as the instructor, will make that call because CSC has been really good. CSC is our IT help desk here at Davenport, the Customer Support Center. They've been really good at trying to put more people on staff during high volume call times. But if you don't establish this protocol where you're the person who makes the call, then you could find yourself in the queue waiting for help behind your own students. You have more access to this course. You built these sessions. You are better equipped to answer questions and tell CSC what's going on. If there is, for any reason, no way that you can bring the course back together for the night or for the duration of that session, that's when you would want to let the students know. You could tell them up front, I'm going to call CSC. Maybe they can't fix this. We're going to give it 15 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour or however long you decide, and then you tell them, then you're going to unplug and we're going to cancel this session, but you're going to go out to Blackboard and you're going to do the homework there so that the learning keeps going. And I always like to have extra material. And if we don't need it, then maybe I turn it into extra credit. Or maybe I save it for another course. But if I put more material than my students are going to need into the Blackboard shell, then in the off chance that something goes so wrong that we have to disconnect from Blackboard Collaborate, then I still have material there in the shell that the students can then go do. And it'll be up to them if they do it right there or if they do it as homework later. But I'm going to hold them responsible for it the next time we come together. And that is the backup plan. But the most important thing to know about the backup plan is that you've planned it out and that you've stayed calm about it. You don't need to lose your head over this. It can be a little frustrating when things don't work, but that doesn't mean you don't know what you're doing. It just means that the tool won't cooperate with you. If you've planned ahead, if you know what you want to cover, and you have a couple of ways that you can do it just in case, then you'll be fine. Here where I have this one thing that says get to class a few minutes early for setup, that may not always be possible for you, depending on when you teach, what the rest of your schedule looks like. But anytime you can give it a few minutes to get things up and running and make sure that they work properly, that's definitely to your advantage. If you know that that is just never going to be the case, then just let your students know that ahead of time so that they're not wondering what's taking you so long to get going. And like I said, You got to format the content, but that's up to you to decide which things work in the Blackboard Collaborate session and which things you want to offload into the Blackboard shell. And you don't have to use all of the features. Mostly, we want you to be comfortable, and we want you to feel good about what you're doing. So that's why at the bottom it says practice. If you've got a Blackboard shell now, even if you don't have a class just yet, if you've taught one before, have you guys taught a class here before? I bet you have. Okay, and Bob, I know you have. You've said you have. Okay, then you have access to Blackboard Collaborate right now. You can go back into an old course and create a Blackboard Collaborate session because the shells are still there. And anytime you have a Blackboard shell, you've got access to Collaborate. And now that you know how to do an in-session invite, you don't have to share that room with somebody who's registered in your Blackboard course. You could just send the link out to somebody and ask them to practice with you. Friends, family, colleagues, anybody you want to. Send them that link and practice. Kick the tires, find your way around, try things. Try things and see what people think about it. Just make sure that you feel good about what you want to do with this before you get into that classroom for real. So, we are just about there. Here is what I want to leave you with. Less is definitely more here. There is so much that you can do, and there is so much that you can share. But think about the things that I've got here so that you can stay focused and calm and confident. That's really what I want you to be able to do. You know the topic. That's why you're teaching the course. This is just one more way to present that information. So, look at that. You've completed VISL training. Yay! So we have a few minutes before 8 o'clock. Do you have questions now? I know I don't have a little soundtrack for the congratulations. If you don't have questions now, that's okay. I threw a lot of information at you in a short amount of time. But you will have my email, because I'm going to send you the PowerPoint, and you can always ask me later. But I see you're typing. Oh, okay. So if you think of questions later, after I've sent you the PowerPoint, which I will do in just a few minutes, then please do reach out. And if you come up with something fantastic, if you use this in your class and you find something great in here that I don't know about, please tell me. I want to know. And I would be happy to explore that with you, because I'm always looking for more ways to make this work and to provide a good experience for both our faculty and our students. So, if you don't have any more questions, then I'm going to actually let you go 5 minutes early. Don't tell anybody, but I'm going to let you go 5 minutes early, and I will go ahead and get that email out to you so you'll have the PowerPoint, and then you will know how to get a hold of me. Thank you both very much for being here. I appreciate you giving me several hours on a weeknight, and I hope that you found it helpful. And hopefully we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you.
And have a great class. Thank you.